Hey, it's Chrissy and Amanda.
Two girls from Saskatchewan, Canada, living the Reiki life while working the 9 to 5.
Welcome to episode 42 with Living the Reiki Life. You're here with Christy.
And Amanda.
And Happy New Year. I hope you're feeling this like fresh collective energy, but also honoring yourself and not putting too much pressure on yourself to change anything or set any crazy goals. Just still honoring that hibernation, that winter solstice energy, because I know I still am. I had 2 weeks off work and I totally cocooned and hibernated, and it was amazing. My husband was off work as well for 2 weeks, and this is like the time of the year where we actually can be together because he works a lot away from home. So it's like making up for all those suppers and mornings with cups of tea and coffee that we don't always get. So it was really good. And I was really inspired by Rochelle's feng shui episode about how important it is to clear the clutter. And we literally went through the entire house and cleared everything. Like, we have so much to give away, so much garbage. Like, it was insane. Yeah.
No way. Did you go like in that space under the stairs?
Yeah, I did. We pulled everything out. I found things I forgot about. And Troy found stuff he forgot about because there was like one room he hasn't cleared in a really long time, like in the basement. And yeah, it just feels so good. Like, I had no idea how much clutter does affect the mind. Because when I walk into a room and right away you see like a cluttered desk or a cluttered closet, right away you're like, oh. But now when I walk into a room, it's like, oh, it just feels so fresh and clean. I was just like, this is such a good way to start the year, and just like that clutter free, it's worth it. And nothing is worse than like stuffing a bunch of crap into an already cluttered cupboard or closet. It's nice to have space for stuff to put things in. And I also find like it's kind of representative of what I would do with feelings. You don't want to deal with your feelings at the time, so you just put them away in the cupboard. And like, in the pantry, you just stuff it in and close the door until one day you have to open it up and face it, and you got to clear it all out. But how good does it feel when you clear it out? So that's like kind of how I look at Reiki too. You're clearing out your cupboards, your fridges, your closets, and yeah, it just feels so damn good.
That's awesome. It does feel good. I agree with you. I like the whole simplicity thing too, because that's exactly how I associate it.
Yep. Yeah, it's like I don't need
good.
5 different steak spices. Let's just have one. Like just less decisions, less overwhelm. It's crazy how these little things just affect us. But yeah, it was a good time.
I'm glad. That's so good. Yeah, we hope that you had the time to connect and take some space and time that you needed as well, because it is really important. And yeah, awesome. Good.
Yeah. What's going on with you?
Actually, while we record this intro, and I'm sure my pal won't mind me sharing this, but I don't know if anyone listened to the fertility podcast that we were on, Christy and I guest on. I talked about how a friend of mine, we kind of had a journey together doing Reiki, helping clearing any blocks with her fertility, and then she got pregnant. And anyways, I did Reiki on her last night or yesterday at 10 a.m. And then she texted me today, so the next day, saying that her water broke and she was going into labor. And as I was doing Reiki on her, I felt all the energy kind of being pushed down. I was like, wow, I can really feel this baby in like the low ready position. And I even asked my guides, I said, this better not like be bringing on labor. And they're like, no, it won't be this week, but it'll be next week. And then as I was talking to Christy about this, and I was like, oh my God, how some of those calendars start from Sunday to Saturday, like the first day is Sunday. And I was like, those jerks. I was like, maybe, right? Not this week. Yeah, because the week is ending on the Saturday and then Sunday is the next week. So I just didn't even think of it. But anyways, yeah, she's in the hospital right now and she's gonna have her baby, and it just feels like this full circle moment. And it's so exciting to share that with someone and be a part of that. So that's my exciting news. It's not even my news, but that's the exciting news.
That is so exciting. I just love that how you were pushing the energy down and you felt that baby like at the bottom, like it's ready to come out. And wow,
Yeah,
yeah.
literally felt that baby at the bottom. I thought, oh my God, I can feel that.
I love that. And there's something like special to say when you're with someone through a whole journey of something. Like I have longtime clients and it's just getting to know them. And it's such a special relationship you have with that person.
It is. It is. And I truly cherish it. I really, really do. So, yeah, super awesome.
Yeah.
Mhm. Um,
Yeah. So what's going on with the astrology this month?
all right. So, as we record this, we would have just been through the full moon in Cancer. So, Cancer again is a water sign. So, if you had kind of an emotional full moon, that is completely expected and normal. Just give yourself grace. But coming up, we are going to have the new moon in Aquarius, which is an air sign, and it is the star card in tarot. So this card is really inspiring for a new moon because that star card is a really like time we want to really focus on our dreams and what we really want to call in and what we really want to create for this year. And I don't know about you guys, but I really felt that collective energy to really start New Year's resolutions this year. And I know Christy and I talked about how Aries, sorry, spring and April is kind of that New Year's for us, but I really felt that energy from the collective to really get serious on my goals and what I want to create for this year to come. And that Aquarius sign is really going to help kind of give us that wish fulfillment, is what I'm hearing. So, really use this card to plant those seeds. And then we actually have a really, really cool thing happening on January 25th when all the planets are going to be in alignment. And that's a really important astrological date, especially for manifesting, because I was reading that it really like opens up portals and the energy behind all the planets aligning is like 10 times the power you would have, or even more so. So really use that day, January 25th. Todd's like, I'm gonna buy lottery tickets that day. And I'm like, yeah, like whatever we need, But yeah, so really interesting stuff.
Yeah, I saw that on your Instagram. I didn't even know that was a thing. But when you
Mhm.
think of like the planets doing their orbit and all that, that is pretty rare for them to all line up.
It is really rare. Did you ever watch Hercules, the Disney movie as a kid?
Yes, long time
Yeah, when
ago
all
though.
the planets are aligning, and then he's like, "We'll release the Titans." It's like, oh, it's years, like 30 years or something that it
Oh,
takes for all those planets to align. Yeah.
that's interesting. Ooh, I'm
Hmm.
gonna start
Big
thinking
deal.
about what to do on that day. And it's like almost like the energy leading up to it as well, hey?
Yeah, I think so. And then with the new moon pretty close to that, like it's gonna be a hot, hot time at the end of this month.
Yeah.
Strap in. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? I did feel that collective energy of the newness, because it's like every time the calendar changes, it's like, oh, new year, new you. And it's just like, but if you carry into the new year the same you, like nothing's going to change. Like, like there's all these different things that I see out there, but there was just something about the energy. And I've talked to a few people and they just feel like this year is going to be big. Like something is shifting. I don't know if it's like micro or macro, but I feel like there's something going on.
And it's also the nine, the year of the nine. So remember how last year eight was like our number? So this is the nine, which is almost like a full completion of cycle. Like nine is all the way at the end there. And I was also hearing it's like we're going to be shedding and kind of completing all of those releasing things this year too, like shedding that old skin, like a snake, like it's a year of the snake. So, yeah, things to be aware of. We should get Natalie back on here, the numerology chick, talk
Yeah.
about
I
the
would love
nine.
that.
Me too.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
because that makes sense to me too about like the shedding everything because when I was going through my stuff, I'd find old clothes that reminded me of the old me, or I'd find different decorations that I had at my old place. And they're all really nice things, but not things I want to bring into the new year. So I just like time to say goodbye, like at the physical level as well. But yes, we should definitely reach out to Natalie. I would love that.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Should we get into today's episode?
Yes, this episode is so cool and so neat. I'm so glad, Christy, you found her.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's funny. I was saying, where did I meet Molly? And I actually met her at an October fall festival where she was doing her readings, and I had one done, and then I followed her on Instagram, and we kept in touch ever since. So yeah, she holds so much knowledge, and it's just another fun way to learn more things about yourself and your journey.
Yeah. When I was editing this, I was looking at my hands again, and I was like, I'm so glad I'm listening to this again. When you're talking, you're not really absorbing, I guess. You're trying to listen. And I don't know, it was just great to listen to this again and really check out my hands and the lines and stuff on your hands. Yeah, everyone will be learning something in this episode today for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's packed full of information. She knows her stuff.
Yeah. So enjoy the episode.
I met Molly a couple years ago at a fall market where she was offering palm readings. It was really neat how she drew the lines on my palm as she explained what each line meant. It's so fascinating how our palms can tell a story. Throughout my spiritual journey, I've not come across any other palm readers, so I was so excited to find one in our home province. Molly's from Saskatchewan, and she travels to different markets within the province and Alberta. She began studying hand analysis during the pandemic lockdown just for fun. But as she learned more and read her own palms and those of loved ones, the more she was blown away by the accuracy and the helpfulness of these readings. And today she's here to share her story and teach us more about palm readings. So welcome, Molly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello. Welcome in. I'm very excited for this today. I
Good.
can't
I'm
wait.
glad to be here.
Yes. And your business name, sorry, I should have mentioned that in the intro. It's
It's the Telltale Hand.
Telltale Hand. Okay, right. Thank you. And we'll of course link that in the show notes. But yeah, let's get into it. So tell us about yourself and how you started palm reading.
Like you said, I started about 4 years ago. My sister wanted to learn how to read tarot cards, so I went to buy her a book on that and just found just a cheap little book on palm reading. So I started with that and just got more and more interested. So I kept getting more books on it. And it turned out that first book was like not very accurate or informative. But it kind of just grew from there and then became kind of a passion project of mine.
Nice. Is it kind of like, would you compare it to tarot where like it's a lifelong learning? Like you'll always learn something new?
Yes, I would, because I think every time you look at a pair of hands, you're learning something new. And when you're actually having a conversation with a person about their hands, you kind of get the nuances of different meanings. So I think you could read hands for the rest of your life and still learn something new all the time.
That's good though.
Yeah,
Keeps you
it is
interesting.
good. Yeah.
That is interesting. So it's hands. You look at both hands, or is it just one hand?
No, it's both hands. Like we call it palm reading, but it really is the whole hand, and it is both hands, and it's the backs of the hands, and it's there's a lot more information in the fingers than people would realize, or the shape of the hands, or the texture. So yeah, it's everything.
Texture too?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What does that mean about texture?
I guess the absolute expert on palm reading is a woman named Ellen Goldberg who wrote The Art and Science of Hand Reading, and she talks about like the 7 different major personality types that you find in the hands, and then there's combinations of these. Most people are a combination of 2. Sometimes you'll get 3. But the texture or the color or the shape of the hand will affect whether a person is she calls it like a higher or a lower type. And it's not necessarily good or bad, but you'll kind of get one personality type, and then there's like a spectrum along that personality type, and there are a lot of clues as to like where in that spectrum a person fits. So for example, if someone was a Jupiter type, so they have a lot of character held in their index finger. A high type of that would be somebody who is like a really great leader, and a low type might be somebody who's like a tyrant. So it's kind of the same grouping of like skills or natural abilities, but just used in different ways. So you'd really do have to like look at the whole hand.
That's
Wow,
neat.
Mm-hmm.
that is so interesting. Of
Yeah.
course, we're all staring at our hands now.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What are the major points on the hands that we could like look at? Like I'm looking at my line that runs from kind of that top and then it goes down to the thumb.
Okay, yep. So that's your lifeline.
Okay,
That's
that
the one
is
I
the line.
think people look at the most or think of the most when they're looking at palm reading. There's kind of rumors, that it'll tell you how long you're going to live, or people will sit down and they'll have like a short lifeline and they'll be pretty nervous about that. But it's really not that simple to read. It's hard to tell. It's hard to say something that you could like look at in your hands and read without error, without knowing a lot more of what you're looking at. I guess generally a good thing to see on the lifeline would be if you see a lifeline that like really swings out really far from the base of your thumb as you get older. That's quite a positive indication because that would just indicate a life that like gains more warmth and affection as you age.
Oh,
Oh, oh.
Yes.
Yeah,
The
that sounds.
lifeline doesn't really show you how long you're going to live. That's always what people think it's going to say, but really it more is reflective of your family life and the amount of vitality in your life for the length of
does it
that.
matter? Does it matter like right or left?
It does. So your dominant hand is really more reflective of the actual events that are happening in your life. So if you look at markings on your right hand, if you're right-handed and you look on your right hand lifeline, those markings, they might reflect things like a bout of illness or like a car accident. Whereas on your recessive hand, like on your left hand, you might have markings, but they're not necessarily related to your physical body. They might be like periods of family difficulty or something like that.
Ah,
Okay,
Yes.
that's really
that is.
good because my lifeline on my left hand, which is my non-dominant hand, is split. And that used to always freak me out as a kid because that's what you hear,
Okay.
right? That's your lifeline. I'd be like, well, mine's broken. And then I'd be like, well, my right one is strong. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it used to weird me out a bit as a kid.
Yeah, there's so many different kinds of breaks too. Like there's a break where it stops and then it starts again later, or there's a break where it splits and then it depends what direction it splits. So there's really
Oh,
it's you have to be really careful when you just say that one thing means one thing, because usually you need to correlate it with three or four other things to really get a picture of what it's saying.
okay. Yeah,
That
that
makes
makes
sense.
sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we quickly run through the other two major lines on our hands? So the one that connects to the lifeline and kind of runs through. Can we talk about that one next? Sorry.
Which one is it? Can you show me that on your hand? Which one do
Yeah.
you mean?
So like there's the lifeline and then
Uh-huh.
there's this one that kind of the
Okay.
one that's connected to the lifeline. That kind of
Okay.
is in
See,
the
it's not
middle of.
connected for everybody,
Oh, oh,
which is
right.
why I
Okay.
wasn't sure which one you meant, but that's the headline.
Oh,
So sometimes it's connected to the lifeline, sometimes it's not. That one really reflects a person's mental state throughout their life. So it will kind of be reflective of intelligence or anxiety sometimes, or like how level-headed a person is, how headstrong someone is. Yeah.
it's really interesting. So is it like kind of the darker? Or I guess you look at a whole bunch of things, the lines and the
Yeah.
shape,
Yes.
the
The
connection.
the depth. It's funny when you hear someone talk about their own hands because they'll describe it, and it's like everybody's hands are so different that it's like very rare that somebody can describe their own hand and have it be like a universal thing.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how
Yes.
about that third one? The
So the
one that
top one is the
yeah.
heart line.
Oh,
That one speaks mostly about a person's emotional state throughout their life. That's usually
okay.
the one I start with in a reading. You can tell a lot about a person's like romantic style or attachment style from that, sort of like how willing they are to compromise. Sometimes how passionate people are, how warm people can be. When you're looking at lines, you're kind of looking at the shape of the line, where it starts, where it ends, what color it is, how deep it is, whether it has like imperfections, if it splits. And then there's lots of different types of markings you'd find on a line. Like sometimes you see pits or dots or vertical lines. You'll see shapes that are shaped like islands or triangles or splits, and then it depends which direction the splits go.
That is so, so neat.
There's another a fourth line that not everybody has. I don't know if you do. It's called the line of fate, and that one runs kind of straight down the middle of your hand from your middle finger.
Middle finger.
Okay.
Not everybody has it, but that's a favorite one I like to read. Sometimes it's read as like a secondary lifeline. Sometimes it takes over from the lifeline, but it's read from the bottom up and it really talks about a person's feelings of security throughout their life. So in modern times, we kind of read it for financial security, but that's not always the only thing it talks about.
So from the bottom up. Okay, see, I have it from the bottom, but it doesn't go from the top down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's petering out somewhere. Lots of people's do. Lots of people's line will actually fade out when they have more personal power in their life.
Oh.
For women, usually that line is gone like in the early 40s. I feel like for most women, you start to see a lot of improvements in their 40s and 50s in terms of like agency.
Because they're feeling more empowered?
Yes.
When they're older? That does come with time.
I've looked at a lot of hands and it seems like for 40s and 50s, like not every person, but for a lot of women, those are like really good years or when things start to get really interesting.
Well, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good times
I
are
love
coming.
hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah. Well, thanks for explaining those.
Yes, I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And it just like shows the depth of the reading. It's not like you can just buy a little book. Like I know my husband's got one of those cheap little books and you look in there and it's just kind of, it says like a few things, but it's like, I guess just like the simplicity of it. But if you really want to get into it, you got to see an expert.
I started with those little books and now that I have like the 800-page textbook that I've read several times and like actually looking at thousands of hands, it's like those little books are just such a brief overview. I wouldn't put too much stock into what they say. Like sometimes people read those books and then they come to me and they say, well, the book says this. And it's like, don't worry about that at all. But,
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's a good place to start. Like if you're curious about it.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
You also mentioned about the Jupiter sign. So does the palms tie into astrology too?
It does. So there's 7 parts of the hand that have different groupings of characteristics, and these are the ones that are kind of put into like personality types. So the index finger is ruled by Jupiter. The middle finger is Saturn. The ring finger is Apollo. The pinky finger is Mercury. And then there is the mount of Mars, which is kind of halfway, like the middle of the hand. Then there's the mount of Luna, which is on the pinky edge of the hand, and the mount of Venus. So, for example, like a person that had a really super long, well-developed pinky finger, as well as like a really padded mount underneath their Jupiter finger might be like a Mercury-Jupiter personality type. Or someone could be like a Venus personality type, and you'd see that in a hand where they have like a really padded area underneath their thumb. So you just got to sort of see every hand is different and there's some patterns that go together more often than others. Sometimes you see really strange combinations, but that's where you really get the foundation of the reading.
Oh, that's so neat.
It's amazing. Yeah. And you can even tell how many kids somebody's going to have. I remember somebody looked at my hand and said that to me.
Okay. Were they right?
Well, I've only have one so far.
Uh-huh.
Part of me hopes they're not right. They said I was going to have 3.
Oh.
So, I'm already 38. Like
the way I read those are called lines of affection, and they show up on the side of the hand with the pinky. Okay. So children's lines, sometimes they do show the number of children that you literally have. Sometimes they show the number of children that your heart claims as their own. So if somebody had 5 children's lines, they might have 2 kids and 3 grandkids.
Oh,
for example. Sometimes you'll see people that have like a ton of little lines. Those people tend to be like teachers or childcare workers. Like I've seen up to 25 of those little lines.
Wow.
I once read the hands of this woman. She had a lot of indications of being like really warm and nurturing and like placing a lot of importance on education. And then I got looking at those lines on the side of her hand and she had like 15 of them. So I asked her if she was a teacher, and she actually said that she had 15 children. So it was right for her. That was the only time I've ever seen that happen where someone actually had like 15 biological kids.
Right.
Wow.
Because you're like, there's no way. She must be like in childcare.
No, I know.
Yeah.
And that's pretty unheard of now for people to have that many.
Yes, it
So
is.
does that matter on the right or the left?
So on your right hand, that would be the one that is more likely to reflect how many actual children you're going to have in your life. The
Okay.
left hand, sometimes it will show how many children you were like destined to have, or how many, sometimes it'll also show like pregnancy losses can show up on
Oh,
the left hand.
Ah.
Yeah. The
yeah.
same area, you also have the lines of affection. The horizontal ones supposedly show the number of great loves in a person's life, which I like to
Say that
read
again.
too. It's always a fun way to end a reading.
Sorry, say that again.
So this part of the hand here, the vertical lines, are the ones predicting children. And you can actually, if you look at the angle that these lines are on and whether or not they split, sometimes you can even predict like if they're male children or female children. Sometimes I've seen twins in people's hands and had that verified, which I thought was pretty neat. But the horizontal lines
This is by the
here,
pinky finger, by the way. The side
underneath
of
the
your
pinky finger on the side of the hand. These lines are predicting the number of great loves in your life. So they're
Oh,
sometimes called marriage lines, but your hands, I mean, hands are, they predate the modern idea of marriage. So it really doesn't necessarily mean like a wedding. That's why I read them as great loves in your life.
Great love. Oh, I like that. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And see, I
Sometimes you'll
thought,
see one super high up, and that's more predictive of a great love in your life happening very late in life.
Late
oh,
in
Hmm.
life. Oh.
I always thought those were the baby lines. I
Those
think I
three
was getting
lines,
them
do you have
mixed up.
three?
Yeah,
If they're horizontal, that would suggest three great loves in your life.
yeah, they are.
Baby
And you know
lines
what?
would be
That actually
vertical.
makes sense.
Hmm.
Because, yeah. Oh, okay, excellent.
Yes. I also always tell people that I think you need to wait to the end of your life to assess what those great loves were. Because then I've
Oh,
Yeah.
read the
that's
hands of like
true.
people that are like 20 and they're like, oh, I've already had two. And I'm like, oh, no, no, don't, don't do that.
Wait
Like,
a second.
wait and see. Mhm.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
20, yes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that definitely changes as you age, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
okay, so Molly, can you tell us a little bit about like the background of palm reading and do you know a little bit about it? Like, is it
Um,
old like tarot? I would think this is
it
old,
is
old.
old. It's actually I'd say it's older than tarot. Like it's thousands of years old and it's from all over Eurasia. Like there's a lot of evidence of it in India even 1,000 years back, but it seems to have developed independently in China and Greece. Like there's lots of, hundreds of years apart in different cultures. So it is very old and it kind of comes from all over the world, but it's mostly associated with Indian palm reading,
Oh, I didn't
which
know
is done a
that.
little bit different. I have a few books too on palm reading, like from an Indian perspective, and it is a little bit different than some of the more scientific methods that came out of like America about 100 years ago. There was this guy named Dr. Benham. He was a doctor and he did a really in-depth study on hands of all his patients and then kind of put together a scientific model for hand reading. So a lot of modern palm reading is kind of a blend of those two things.
Oh, that's neat.
Yes. So yes, it
Yeah.
is very old, but I think it is constantly evolving too.
Yeah.
I feel
Mhm.
like that actually would make sense that this originates in India because they also read faces and the shape of your faces, and
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
especially for even finding a match for your partner. Like
Yeah.
when people are trying to arrange marriages and things like that, it's like they can tell a lot by the face, even just the shape of the face and everything that, and blending it in with
Yes.
astrology. That's huge.
Hmm. I was
Yeah, and
I
that
was at a
Vedic,
fair
very
a
cool.
couple months ago and this woman was doing fingerprint readings. So they were like palm readings, but she just took your fingerprints and then the entire reading was based on your fingerprint. And I
What?
do a little bit of reading off the fingerprints, but hers was the entire thing,
Wow.
which I thought was interesting. And then I've
Yeah.
also heard about people in California that will do butthole readings.
Oh.
Like,
Butthole.
yeah, and apparently
Oh
there's
my
like
God.
predictions to be derived from that. So I guess I don't know which of these are like true or what, but yeah. Like you
Oh,
can get a
I
lot of
just,
information from any part of the body, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
you know what's awful? I just thought of like count the rings on the butthole to like find the age,
Yeah.
like a tree. Oh, that's so funny. Wow. I wonder
Hmm.
how much you would charge for that. I think I would have
A
to collect
lot.
a lot of money
Yeah. Yeah.
to analyze.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. Yeah, but are your hands and fingers, I guess it's a whole combination when you're reading, but like our
Yeah.
fingerprints are so unique and so individual, right? Like they're like snowflakes.
Yeah.
Nobody has the same print.
I don't think anybody has the same hands. I've looked at so many hands and they never look the same.
Yeah,
The fingerprints I think are the same throughout your entire life though, where a lot of other parts of your hand can change.
right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It depends your fingerprint because most people don't have a full match set of 10 fingerprints. That's extremely rare. So it's kind of looking at the fingerprint depending on what finger it's on. Like if you had sort of a softer energy in your pinky finger, you might be somebody who puts that energy more towards like healing arts. Whereas if you had like a really strong energy in your fingerprint on your Mercury finger, that might be somebody who more excels in business. And
Hmm.
there's
Oh,
different readings those for each fingerprint.
each one. Huh.
Hmm.
I just thought of something really random. Christy and I were listening to something. This was years ago when we worked together, well before my mat leave. And we heard that if you have a little cross on like kind of near the top below the middle finger, it's like that means you have a witch wound. Is that
Witch
bogus or
wounds. I've never
yeah.
heard that, but I like that. Wait, does
Well,
that sound like a bad thing?
no, I just
Well,
figured like, well, if you've never heard of it, it must have been just something silly we were listening to. I can't remember if that was like real stuff, Christy, or if that was just like a
like
Yeah,
silly.
I remember that.
those
Yeah.
things all have different names, but I mean, you do see little crosses show up in places. Um, it would depend on what exactly the cross looked like. Because if your line of fate, that one running up the middle of the hand, if it went all the way up to the bottom of that middle finger and then it had a line cutting through to make a cross, that would be a blockage of energy of some kind relating
Mm,
to that Saturn mount, which is the one that rules scholarship, wisdom, and philosophy. Saturn and Luna are the ones most tied to like occult powers. So it could be a witch wound of
Oh,
some kind, although I've never heard it called that. But
mm.
yeah,
yeah. I remember that when we were looking at that. And didn't we both have it?
Yeah, I think we were both trying to almost find one.
Yeah,
Like,
probably. Like, yes, come on.
yeah. Mhm.
So, can palm readings like predict the future? Like, can your like palm lines change over time?
yeah. Yeah, definitely. I always try to make sure people know that when I'm doing the reading, because sometimes you'll see something that maybe makes a person worry, but it's actually more just like a warning. Like for example, let's say on your lifeline, if you had a spot on your lifeline where you saw it like really fade out or split off, and that was 10 years in the future, that would be predicting like a real loss of energy at that point. Maybe 10 years in the future, and the solution of that might just be that you need to start taking better care of yourself now. If you're on your heart line and you saw like an impending heartache coming up in the near future, usually when somebody has a line like that, then they'll end up telling me that they're like in a tumultuous relationship or something like that. And so what that's predicting is that that is like headed for disaster at some point. So then you can, seeing those things on your hand, you can make different choices and then change that. Like nothing's ever set in stone. It's definitely not, there's no doom in the hands ever.
Okay, that's so good to hear because
Mhm.
when I met you, I told you about that. Well, you've met so many people. You might, I don't know, I don't expect you to remember this story, but when I first got my palm reading, it was in a psychology class. Just
Mhm.
like a weird or our teacher was just like this weird hippie. I loved him. And he brought his friend in to do palm readings for all of us. And I remember waiting and waiting and like in line for this reading. I was like, I don't know if I really want to do this. Like I felt kind of weird about it. And I was the
Mhm.
last one in the room with this lady and she had a weird energy about her. And she told me like happy things, like you have creative hands, you should do pottery, that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden she like told me this like really awful thing that would happen to me in the future and I could predict it or I could prevent it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
Are you past that point now? Like, did that time come and go?
No, it's still in the future. Yeah,
Yeah. And was
around
she
50.
specific enough about it that you will like think that you can recognize it to avoid it?
Well, it has to do with my partner.
Mm-hmm.
So she said that he would pass.
Oh, interesting. See, I've always believed that you can't read someone else's future in your hands. Like sometimes people will come and they'll say, like, oh, I've got my son's like really got a really bad drug addiction. Is he going to overcome that? And it's like that person's hand might show that they're coming up on like a long period of heartache. But it's like, does that mean that your son's not going to? It's speaking about something, but it can't necessarily speak about your whoever you're thinking of specifically. So I don't know how someone else's death could be predicted in your hand or something awful happening to somebody.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah.
I'd have to see what she saw and that yeah.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see, or like if she pointed out where it was in my hand. I wish I would have remembered
Mhm.
because it was so long ago.
Yeah. How
And
old were you when she said that?
16, I believe.
Oh, like where in your life was that supposed to happen? Because you think the timings would be pretty much the same.
Yeah. She said that he'd be 50. So
Oh,
he's
he would be
4.
50.
Yeah. So he's 43
Yeah.
right now. So I was like,
Hmm.
that's like a long ways away.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how, if she had maybe a different style of palm reading. I know I've met a few that tend to do it more intuitively, where it's like partially based on what they see in your hands and it's partially about what they're reading in your energy. But did you even know your husband when you were 16?
No. No,
Oh,
I
that
didn't.
sounds like a psychic prediction to me, but I don't know. I can
Yeah.
see why that'd be worrisome. But she said you can prevent it.
Yeah.
Huh.
And I was like, well, that's a lot of pressure on me.
Yeah,
Like, holy
that is a lot of pressure. Yeah. But I guess if 50 comes and goes for him and nothing happens, then you can just like take the credit. Just
yeah,
like
yeah,
something you
exactly.
did somewhere along the way. Good job.
Did something. Well, and it's
Yeah.
funny, like I told him about it when I met him, and it's like kind of a running joke now.
Uh-huh.
And I actually did buy him a gift certificate. I believe it was at Christmas time to come see you, but he hasn't done it yet.
Ah,
And I was
right.
like, because
Yes.
it's like, well, he should go and he should get the reading
Yeah.
himself.
Oh,
So,
I'm very interested to see his hands now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll have
Ah,
to like put a bug in his ear
yeah.
to book with you.
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah.
I would also be very interested to know what you find in his hand.
Yes. I know, because that's always like haunted me. You know how some readings just kind of stick with you, but I've never had anybody say something like that crazy to me before. And
Yeah.
yeah, but it's like you have to take it or leave it. Like you can't dwell on any type of reading.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Mm.
Okay, and I think we kind of talked about this, but so I know, and I'm not too sure if this is would be the same when you're reading palms, but like the right side of our body is our masculine and our future, and then
Hmm.
like it, and then the left side would be our feminine and our past. Like, does that correlate with palm reading as well? Like, I know that does a lot when we do Reiki. Like, if one side of the body is more unbalanced than the other, I kind of look at that and but is it the same with palm reading? And then like if you put your
Um,
hands together, is it like a map?
so I think it maybe is adjacent to that because most people are right-handed. So most people were reading their right hand as their dominant hand, and that is the one that is clearly speaking more about their like actual life as it's happening or things that are like playing out in their future or actually like starting to build to fruition. The left hand, when it talks about your past, it's not necessarily, and depending on what you believe about past lives, I think it's more like if you were looking for karmic energy in a person's hands, you'd be more looking on the left hand. Sometimes people say the left hand shows things more related to your like original pattern. So you might see who a person was meant to be when they were born. Um, the line of fate, sometimes on the left hand, you'll see red where it'll have indications about things maybe that you've brought in from a past life. When you put the two together, I think holding them up, you don't actually see anything like map related, but it's a good comparison to see how similar they are. Because if your left hand and your right hand are exactly the same, that means that you have completely stuck to your original pattern. Like whatever that map was laid out for you when you were born, that's what you've used. So all of your lines are reflecting each other like a mirror, and that's extremely rare to find.
Yeah.
You'll see some people where it's like pretty close, and then you see some people where it looks like you're looking at two different hands. And sometimes you'll see people where their thumbs are different sizes or their hands are different sizes or they're like different colors. Like you'll see major differences between the two. And what that shows is just there's been like a major departure from where that person started out to maybe where they are now. And sometimes that's through like outside events, and sometimes it's like really shows somebody who really is like captain of their own ship. Like here's somebody who's made major changes from what they were given at the beginning, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Personally, I think it's better to see, you want to see differences between the two, and you want to see better stuff in the right hand than the left hand. Sometimes for the past, like you'll see indications in a person's left hand that suggest potential or gifts that they have. And if they're not in the right hand, it's because they're being wasted or underused in some way. Is the other thing I look for. Because sometimes you'll read the hand of somebody who's maybe older and they'll say, like, I feel like I never found my thing, or I feel like I'm maybe not on the right path. And usually the thing that they're missing is in the left hand somewhere. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that does. That is fascinating. Huh.
So when you say that they kind of got off path, or do you mean like the plan we came in when we incarnated with?
Yes, partly, or if let's say like somebody was born in a mud shack in one part of the world, and they had really like no education, then you might see that in the left hand. But then if they pulled themselves up and had like great luck and worked really hard, then you'd see major improvements in their right hand. Because it's like somebody is ending their life really far from where they began, and it was because of their own actions.
Okay.
That'd be
Yes.
great to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places in the lines where you can see improvements over the course of a person's life, whether people like improve or grow or not.
Or not. Oh, okay. Can you
Like,
tell? Sorry, go ahead.
Like if you think of the lines on the hands as little rivers, and you know rivers like change their direction over long periods of time. Small changes in the lines you'll start to see after about 2 years. So if a person really started like changing how they were thinking, you would see the headline start to slightly change direction. So you can read the line, and really towards the end or whatever the most recent part of the line is, you can kind of see like what direction a person's heading in, whether it's like positive personal growth or not.
So much good information. I know I can't stop looking at my palms.
I know, me too. I keep staring at them, thinking that I'm just going to find something out, which I stare at them
Yeah, I
and
was
I still don't know what it means, right? I'm just like comparing now and trying to analyze with no information.
And we were in the Foam Lake Expo. When was that? March, I believe. And there were so many. Yeah, and there's that winter storm, and there's so many people that were like, "Where's the palm reader?" And I was like, "I don't think she's here." Yeah.
Is that supposed to be you?
Yeah.
I was going to go to that, and then that blizzard rolled in, and if I went, I wasn't going to make it home. So
no, you wouldn't. We barely did.
Yeah, we barely did. It was horrendous. Yeah, driving home in that.
But the one lady I talked to, she was like you were lined the year before. I think you were there. She said you were lined up like all the way down the.
Oh yeah,
gym.
it was busy. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good show.
It is. I was so impressed with that for being such a small town. I couldn't believe that.
Yes. Yeah. The community and support and open-mindedness. Yeah. We were blown away too. So we covered a lot with the different lines in the palms here. And we were wondering, like, is there any interesting stories you wanted to share about some readings?
There's honestly, I think every time you sit down with someone, you hear some kind of interesting story. And sometimes they are like so far apart from each other. Like, the headline is usually just like gently curving down, but sometimes you'll see where it just drops off. It'll have like a right angle for a moment, which shows like drastic and immediate mental change. And I saw that in someone's hand one time, and it was a ghost sighting. They had like seen, that was the age they had seen a ghost and realized that like all those things were true, which I thought was pretty interesting. And so it completely like changed their point of view for the rest of their life.
Yeah,
so that was very neat. There was another one. I had this woman come, and this was just at like a mini market fair reading, and she came with one of her friends, but she just wanted me to tell her, looking at her hands, what she was like meant to do with her life. So we did quite like a deep dive into looking at, her dominant mounts, and she had 4 or 5 things in her hand. So when I finally put them all together, I said, I think you should be a doctor. And her friends started to laugh because this woman was partway through medical school, and she was having a crisis about whether or not she actually wanted to do that.
Oh my goodness.
Like, well, your
Oh,
hands think you should.
Wow.
So sometimes you get like really neat validation like that.
Yeah, talk about like she needed to come see you for that
Yeah.
reading that day. That is so
Yeah.
neat.
Yes. Sometimes you get stuff where it's like it's hard to know whether or not you've helped someone. You'd have to like wait. I wish I kept a record and I could wait 20 years and follow people up. I had this woman come to me once. This has happened actually more than once where somebody's lifeline ends at a certain age. So this woman, she thought her lifeline ended in like her early 50s, and she was sure that she was going to die when she was 50, and she just wanted to know if her yeah, so that's what she came to me because she had a feeling she was going to die in her early 50s, and her lifeline, she wanted to know what it said about it, and it actually said the same thing. So the
Oh.
reason this is interesting though is because all the lines in your hand are coming out of your subconscious, which is why if you have positive thoughts, you'll have a more positive headline. If you have a warmer heart, you're going to have a warmer heart line. But if you get this idea in your head that something's like for sure going to happen and you like obsess over it and you really internalize it, it's like that's kind of almost like manifestation, and you can put that in your hands. So she'd been thinking for 25 years that she was going to die at 50, and now that's what both her hands said. And I tried
Oh.
to tell her it's like that doesn't necessarily mean you are going to, but it's like you sure have like locked that in that that's what you're expecting. So the only thing you could do there would be to try to like let go of that idea, because then you might see that lifeline start to grow a bit. But that also just goes back into if you see something in your lifeline that you don't like in the future, you do have a lot of power to change it. For
Yes.
sure.
That's right. Wow, that just shows like how powerful the subconscious mind is.
oh, it is so powerful.
People could look at in their hands. There's empty hands and full hands. Empty hands are usually on men, but that's where people have like the 3 or the 4 main lines and then really no lines in between. And I've even seen that on old men, like 80-year-old men in the backs of their hands are like crepe paper, but in their palms, they only have like 4 lines. And that'll usually show up on somebody who's like a really even keel or tends to like almost have a meditative mind most of the time. Those are the guys you'd be like, what are you thinking about? And they're like, literally nothing. Like their wheels aren't constantly turning, so they have fewer lines put on there. But sometimes you'll see people's hands and they are just like so many lines, it's hard to even see the main lines. And that's usually an indicator of somebody who has anxiety or like spends way too much time thinking. But either way, if you have got a million tiny little lines in your hand, that's somebody who can like really benefit from meditation or just letting their mind clear.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have a lot.
Those people always know who they are, but it's a
Yeah.
good reminder anyway, because it does show up. So, mhm.
You know, you talked about the back of the hands. What are you looking for at the back of the hands? And
Um,
do little liver spots count? Those little
They can, yes. So like moles, if you have moles show up on a finger, it might show something about the finger and the location that it's on. For example, like if you have a mole on the bottom phalange here, closest to the hand, on your Jupiter finger, that is a part of the hand that is really related to food. Sometimes, so a mole is considered an imperfection. So that can indicate problems with food, and sometimes that's an eating disorder. Sometimes that's like a difficulty with overeating or people that have like really severe food allergies. I didn't explain this earlier, but the bottom third of the hand is more representative of a person's like physical realm. The middle of the hand is more practical abilities, and then the fingers really more reflect a person's mental power. So if somebody has like really extremely long fingers, that tends to be like more of a thinker than a doer. But the same rules hold true for the 3 phalanges of the finger. The bottom of the finger is more related to like the physical realm of those characteristics. And then the middle realm would be the practical application. And then the fingertips are the mental application. If that makes sense. So
Okay.
yes, I do look for moles. I also, apparently hair on the back of the hands really is an indicator of virility and vitality. Some of this information I do think is a little bit outdated. I've read some books where they would kind of ascribe physical characteristics to personality characteristics in an unkind way, and I don't really think that those are true. A lot of the books will say if a person, like you're always supposed to shake a person's hand when you do a palm reading and kind of get a feel on like the texture and the firmness of the hand. And there were a lot of books that said, you know, a really soft hand indicates gluttony or sloth. And I think that's like really low-hanging fruit. And I don't think that's like a good reading at all. So I don't worry too much about what the book says, but I do take it into account in that aspect. Most of the information is very much true, but yes.
That's really interesting thing you said about the moles because
Mhm.
so I took about the moles because I took a quantum hypno hypnotherapy course, with Dolores Cannon, and all those moles that you have on your body are there for a reason, and they
Yeah.
usually are tied in with a past life. So when
Yes.
you do heal those parts and you heal that part of the subconscious, your moles will actually go away.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah. And it's actually
Hmm.
really interesting because I used to have like kind of a bigger mole on my back on my left shoulder. And my sister would always be like, you should really get that checked out. And then there was just one day I was looking in the mirror and I was like, huh, that mole's gone. And my sister was like, what? And I was like, yeah, like it's just gone. And this was before I got into all of this. So I'm like, I must have done some kind of healing. And I know I've been shot in an arrow in that shoulder before that I have healed now, but that mole is gone. So it is super interesting that those moles that you look for those because they
Hmm.
do tell a lot. They are a story.
Hmm. Yeah. What did you do to heal like an arrow wound from a past life?
Oh, you know what? Okay, so I was under trance and you see it and you let the subconscious heal it. It's kind of like by addressing it and uh, going through the scene and seeing the death scene, you're kind of airing it out and letting it heal and
Oh,
breathe out. And yeah, and then Christy
interesting.
and I also we heal stuff like that too when we do Reiki. Because I
Yeah.
actually think I healed this before when I was doing Reiki more than I did in the thing. It was just almost like another amplifier to really let that go. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Cool.
that's how.
Yeah, very cool.
Yes, yes. The things you learn about your moles. hmm
yes.
Okay.
So you travel around and you do like lots of markets, but you also can read palms online. So how does that work?
So I've mostly my full reads I have transitioned to mostly doing over Zoom. It was hard to book locations in other cities and then get fully enough booked to like justify it. I don't really do mini readings over Zoom. What I get is a person will send me really clear pictures of their palms in bright daylight. If they send me pictures and they're not good enough, I will be more specific about what I need and just make sure that I have really good pictures to work off of. And then I put the pictures up on screen while I'm doing the Zoom reading, one hand at a time. And then just like I would do in person, I draw on the screen to illustrate what I'm looking at. Um, Also, if I need kind of, usually I can get a pretty good idea of shape now on hands, on pictures, just because I've seen so many in real life, but sometimes the person I'll need to, just to get like a little bit more dimension, they'll show them to me on screen. And then we just go through, just like a palm reading in person, every single event and depict it on each line and how they correlate to each other, and then everything that we see about the personality or potentials or things like that. Really, it's the exact same thing. It takes a little bit longer because of the technical aspect, but other than that, it's the same reading.
That's awesome. I was
Yeah.
wondering about that if you could do that over Zoom.
Oh, yeah, it works really well over Zoom. I actually like when I first started, I did it for a couple friends of mine at first, just to like work out any kinks, but no, it works a lot better than I thought I was going to. Yeah.
That's a great option. I
Yes.
love that.
Yeah, that is. Are you going to any markets like coming up, or have you kind of, or you're just on Zoom now, or?
I'm just on Zoom for the time being. I took most of the summer off because my son was home with me full time. So I'm just getting ready to ramp things up again, and then I'll see if I can find places to go. So I've
Oh,
also been going to Medicine Hat every couple months. There's a crystal shop there where I've been doing in-person readings. But
nice.
yeah, we will see.
Yeah, right on.
Great.
Mhm.
I personally love that you can do this over Zoom because that would be more my jam
Oh,
instead of,
cool.
well, and we have listeners from all over. So if they don't live even in
Yeah, I
Canada,
started
they can
offering
do
them and
this.
I was so excited because I got readings from places like I did somebody's hands in Singapore and I've done Ireland and like several in California. And I thought that was so neat
Ah,
because like I can't reach people like that. from like a table at a craft fair in Saskatoon. So it was very cool.
That is so
That
cool.
is.
Yeah. Yeah, the power of technology, and
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah, that is awesome. Wow. Well, thank you so much for all your information today.
Well, thank you.
Yes, I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that. So where can people find you?
You can email me at thetelltalehand@gmail.com, or I am on Instagram as well at the Telltale Hand.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I will include that in the show notes so people
Cool.
can find you and follow
Thank you.
you. And yeah,
Yep.
Yes. Okay. So, gosh. Well, thank you so much, Molly.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. You guys have a very fun show.
Oh,
oh,
thank
great.
you. Yeah,
Right on.
okay.
Yes, thanks so much for your time.
Okay. Okay. So for today's card reading, we actually have two piles. So I have a pick a card. So I have one that is associated with selenite, and then I have another pile that is associated with amethyst. So take a second, pick a stone of what resonates to you, and then I'm going to read out the reading for each one. Did you pick yours, Christy?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I'm excited.
Okay. So for the first one is the selenite. And for the oracle card that I picked with it, it says heal away addictions. So it's time to let go of behaviors that are blocking you from your heart's desire and ask Archangel Raphael to help you with this healing. And the picture is of a woman and she's like in water. And the tarot cards that I pulled for this. So some of you could be in kind of relationships that aren't really serving you. Maybe relationships that have kind of been on their way out for some time. And for whatever reason, there's kind of like this codependent or this cord, this energetic cord that is keeping you together. So you know what to do. I'm not going to give advice on that, but go inward and really reflect, like really find solitude in yourself and figure out what is the best decision for you because there is going to be some positive movement forward. Like the sun is coming up. The sun will come out tomorrow, is what I'm hearing by that Annie. So the sun is going to come out, the clearing, it is going to be okay. But this is a major shift. There's some major shifting happening here with this energy. It is really time to like kick the old habits, kick the old routines that need to kind of fall off. And some of you too might be really getting into learning something new and really going into maybe a new career path, or even just maybe you're deciding now to really get into energy work or turning into like the spiritual side of things and picking up a new hobby in your part-time life, things like that. So yes, positive things are coming, but the relationship might be something that could be best if it is time to move on, if I'm being frank, just with the heal away the addictions and things like that. And now, for those of you who picked amethyst, the oracle card I got is clear yourself. So ask the archangels to, or ask the angels to release any toxic energies that you may have absorbed. Both of these kind of have the same theme, but it is really important for us to always clear our energy and our fields. And I know we talk about cutting cords and stuff like that with people, and just it's nothing negative when we do that, but we're just releasing the energy cord that has been created and we're still sending everything away with love and light. So this here is really about finding balance, balance in calling in what you want on the work front, but also taking that rest that is really needed. There's going to be some huge success coming in with business, I'm seeing, and kind of things that have been destined to come. So people who have been doing the hard work, and now it's like getting into that full circle of things that you're finally going to be able to like reap that reward. So all that giving and giving that maybe you have been doing, it's finally, the universe is going to show you that back. And then I'm also seeing too, if some people, I think prosperity is actually going to happen. So this is either could be a brand new work adventure is coming in, or whoever has been trying to get pregnant. I feel like that's actually going to come in the next little while as well. I'm seeing within 4 months for sure. Yeah. Yes. So that is it.
That was awesome. Thank you. I love being able to pick which one and see which resonates. They actually both resonated with me, especially that
Oh, did
second
they?
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, about cutting
Mm,
cords.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like if little things resonated from both, obviously take what resonates and leave what doesn't.
Yeah.
We always say. Yeah. What crystal did you pick?
I picked the selenite, but amethyst
Hmm.
actually, I don't know. It's funny. I second guess myself. And it's like I picked this one, but then I was like, no, I want that one. And I should have went with my first gut of amethyst because that's
Mm.
what, yeah. But yeah,
Mhm.
pieces of selenite made sense to me too because with yeah, different things going on. But yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. Hopefully that resonates out there and yeah, let us know.
Yeah, let us know. And you can find us on Instagram at Living the Reiki Life.
And our personal handles, mine is Reiki with Manda.
And mine is the Birch Soul. So you can find out more about us and our bookings. And if you want to have a chat, shoot us a message.
Yeah, we'll always love that.
Hmm.
Yes. So yeah, Happy New Year, everyone. And this is going to be such a good year and truly believe that because it is. And our thoughts are so powerful, especially in January. Make sure you're calling in all that good stuff for yourself because you truly do deserve it.
Yes. Yeah, what a beautiful way to end. Thanks, Amanda.
1, 2,